First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my brother that his wife is right and I'm embarrassed to be related to him? My 24 female, brother 28 male, called me yesterday to back him up in a fight between him and his wife, 27 female. Some background context before we begin. My brother's wife had just given birth to a son a few weeks ago. So, on what happened in their fight, my brother said he made a passing remark about how his wife's stretch marks made her look less attractive. These stretch marks are as a result of her pregnancy plus giving birth. His wife got upset and called him an a-hole for making such a comment. She said that the stretch marks were as a result of bearing their child. My brother said that she couldn't blame him for not liking her stretch marks. Quoting him exactly, "Who likes how stretch marks look?" They're not on speaking terms now, and my brother basically called me to ask me to talk to his wife for him. I told him no, she was right. He was an insensitive a-hole and that he needed to apologize to her or screw off. He said that it was unfair for me to be so unpleasant to him and that he thought I would support him since I'm his sister. I told him, F that. Right now, I'm embarrassed to be related to you. He told me I was being extreme and that his feelings were deeply hurt. He called me an a-hole for this and said that I was petty. And yes, I may have been a bit extreme, but am I really the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, that his feelings were deeply hurt. Well, at least he knows how his wife feels. Please, what he's experiencing isn't even 1/millionth of the hurt the wife must be going through. Imagine enduring 9 grueling months of eldritch detention body horror and extreme mood swings with constant psychological distress as a result of hormone effery, all out of a deep and inexpressible love for your partner and your mutual desire to create something beautiful. Capping it off with the worst pain a human body can physically experience, then being told by your partner that you are uglier to them for having done all that. For them. As an act of love and expression of lifelong fidelity and dedication to them specifically. That's how much hurt the wife is going through, and how much of an a-hole the brother is. Even sitting here typing all this out, and rationally being aware of all the experiences this woman has had, I still cannot meaningfully imagine or comprehend it on a personal level as a naive 20-year-old male. My heart goes out to the poor woman, and I hope the brother sees this and realizes just how much of a gigantic, flaming, insensitive, irredeemable, borderline sociopathic a-hole he is. Not an a-hole. Can you tell my wife that everyone thinks she looks gross now? Not just me? Your brother is heading for a divorce. Not an a-hole. His feelings were hurt? His wife may now permanently question her appearance because of his insensitive comments. Screw him. Stretch marks are tiger strips earned while building another human life. Also, your brother is being either super crappy or super stupid to assume you'd blindly support him because of your relationship. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for publicly calling my father a coward and embarrassing him for leaving me with my JW mother while he escaped? I grew up in basically a cult. When I was 9, my father got a divorce from my mom and eventually moved out to another state. He would come down and see me, and my mom made it as difficult as she could to facilitate our relationship. He remarried when I was 15 and didn't even try to get custody of me after I asked. I cut him off for a while because I felt that he abandoned me completely with my psychotic mother. I'm now 19 and I've gone no contact with my mother. I stayed for a few months with my father after I moved out at 18, but got my own place shortly after college started. My father has tried for a while to reestablish a relationship, but I'm not really up for it. I see him occasionally for dinner or holidays, but other than that, I don't really engage with him. I find him as bad as my mother because he left me with her. Earlier this year, I was tagged in a Facebook post by my father's wife, wishing my father a happy birthday. It was also apparently a pregnancy announcement. She had the nerve to say my father was an amazing man, and father mentioned me by name. I ended up replying, I don't consider this man a good father. He's a coward who left me with an evil mother while he created a new family. He's going to run out on you and your kid, like he did with me. He's truly a terrible human being. It caused a bit of drama, and his wife ended up deleting the post entirely. I have been since contacted by members of his wife's family saying that they had no idea my father was that kind of man. I ignored the messages. My father and his wife both tried contacting me, which I refused to reply to. Their child was born with severe health issues, but I haven't met her yet. My father has broken down crying and apologized a few times over the past year for leaving me with my mother. He claims he was mistreated by my mother and didn't know how to deal with her. But I was the child who needed protecting, not him. I told him as such, and I have no plans to forgive him. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Listen, two things can be true here. 1, your dad was a victim. 2, your dad was a terrible father. These are not mutually exclusive things. Plus, his wife should not pretend that your dad was there for you. He got remarried when you were 15. Presumably for most of your adolescence, she didn't know you at all. So she couldn't be under the delusion that your dad had a role in your life. Please, if you can, seek therapy. You don't have to have a relationship with your dad, but therapy will help work through the very real trauma and disappointment you feel here. I mean, if I can afford therapy, I probably would have tried it. Not the a-hole. Your feelings are valid, and her parading you about as a happy child is hurtful. She brought it out for everyone to see, so were you supposed to just suffer in silence? Honestly, with your sister having health issues, things might get too hard for him, and it's possible he leaves them too because he's not emotionally stable enough. I honestly think so. He doesn't have the best track record as father, clearly. Not the a-hole. Your father was a victim too, and he decided to get himself out, which is fair enough. But he also decided to do that at the expense of leaving you behind. Alone. With a woman he knew was abusive. I don't know if I'd be able to forgive that. Ever. As in, I wish you the best, but don't ever talk to me either. So as far as I'm concerned, any relationship you have with him should always be on your terms. And he and his wife most definitely don't get to use you to display their happy family without your consent, and they deserve to be called out if they do. I agree with everyone here saying that you should do therapy, but it should be for you, not in order to restore a relationship with your father that you are absolutely entitled to choose not to have. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for being angry at my fiancé's family and telling them to grow up and be better because they won't support us getting married since her older sister is still single? I, 27 male, have been with my fiancé, 27 female, for 2 years. 6 months ago, I proposed. Her family has always gotten along with me. In her culture, it was forbidden for younger siblings to marry before their older ones. Siblings had to marry in birth order. I had no idea about that. She's third-generation Canadian. Her parents don't have any siblings, so it wasn't a problem. One of her grandparents has a younger brother, but he's never been married and is more of a scholar, so it wasn't a problem. She has one sibling, 30 female. Last year, her sister's boyfriend of 7 years left the relationship because of her pressuring him to marry. He always said marriage wasn't for him, but he was okay with a committed relationship without it. They had lived together for almost 5 years. My fiancé did feel for her, but at the same time, her sister didn't listen to what he said, and she thought she could change his mind. Her family was not happy about the engagement. They say she shouldn't have gotten engaged before her sister was married, and should have said not yet to my proposal. Now they want us to wait until her sister gets married. She's completely single now, and her getting married would take years. This never came up before. They always got along with me fine. Her sister was specifically upset at hearing the news. Her 4 grandparents, great-uncle and parents are on her sister's side. We've decided not to wait to get married, because there is no end to the pandemic in sight. We're getting married Friday on our 2-year anniversary. We will do it outdoors. The only people there will be the officiant and 2 friends to be witness and take pictures and video. The 3 of them work with us. We work in a hospital. I'm a histologist and my fiancé is a respiratory therapist, so we won't be around any new people. We'll stream it for any family and friends and colleagues who want to watch, and we'll mail/email the video and photos to anyone who asks. We won't have a reception or honeymoon until things are better. Her parents, sister, grandparents, and great-uncle say they will not watch the wedding. I'm angry at them. We live in modern Canada. People don't get married young as in past times. Her sister is an adult with a college degree and a full-time job, but she is being so petty and my family is supporting her. It's not we got engaged the day her sister's boyfriend left her. More than a year has passed. Am I the a-hole for being angry with her family and telling them to knock it off? She's hurt to have no family support. Work has been hell for both of us due to the pandemic, and either of us getting a day off has been like pulling teeth. No one's fault, just the pandemic. We both have to work the day after our wedding too. Besides work, we haven't left our home for anything since March. We are working extra hours. We just want one nice thing. I'm also wondering if they will be angry if my fiancé gets pregnant before her sister. I don't like seeing her hurt. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I'm also wondering if they will be angry if my fiancé gets pregnant before her sister. You bet your butt they will be angry. But who cares? Live your life. You have no idea how long you'll have to wait just to satisfy tradition. And who knows what other BS they want you to follow. Make it clear if they don't quit with this nonsense now, they will not be seeing or having access to any kids in the future. You will not put up with this, and they can grow up or get cut off. Not the a-hole. I'm aware of such traditions, and sadly in some cases, deep-rooted traditions like that are placed over happiness of people, which is unfair. You should support your fiancé, but know that you might never change their mind and be prepared for the fallout you both will receive. It's a terrible situation, but unless they want to change their minds, nothing will change. Not the a-hole. When people immigrate to more liberal countries, they are meant to assimilate their culture into that of their new home, not try to live like they did in the old world. Second generations shouldn't be bound by the rules of their parents' old homes. Your wife is a third-gen Westerner. She has all the rights of any Westerner, including marrying whom she wishes and when. Your anger at them for making her unhappy is entirely proper. Her family is not super conservative, so this was surprising. Her mother, grandmothers, her sister and herself are all educated and have careers. They aren't religious. They support same-sex marriage and have friends of other races and cultures. Her sister lived with her boyfriend for almost 5 years without being married, and I have lived with my fiancé for 6 months and they didn't care about us not being married. It was really surprising and weird that this is the thing that upsets them. It never once came up before our engagement. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for being livid after my husband invited his whole family to celebrate Christmas at our house? I've been with my husband for 4 years. We've always celebrated Christmas at his parents' house. He never let me go celebrate with my family, even though his family lives in another town. He's always complained about wanting his family to come to us instead of going to them. His sister and her husband live near my in-laws, and so they'd usually host a number of events, and this pisses my husband off for no reason. He says his brother-in-law isn't better than him, and doesn't even have a big house to invite people there. Clearly, he's jealous of the time his family spends with his brother-in-law. A few days ago, he started calling his family a lot but didn't tell me why. He's been acting strange, spending his time making lists / buying stuff like blankets, cups, towels, even though it's just him, me, and our son. I kept asking him, but he said those were for us. He kept asking me to reschedule my shifts. I'm a nurse working at a local hospital, and it's different from a clinic. It's always busy and requires more shifts. Yesterday, I got a call from my mother-in-law, and she surprised me by saying that she decided to come on Tuesday. Her, father-in-law, sister-in-law, brother-in-law and their kids, then husband's aunt and her husband and stepchildren, will come on Friday. I was shocked. I had no idea what she was talking about. I was able to find out from her that my husband decided to invite his whole family for Christmas at our house. I didn't make her feel I didn't know. Once I finished the call, I went to ask my husband, and he confirmed it. I was livid. This means they will be spending weeks at our house, and the cooking / cleaning / groceries will be taking so much. I have a strict schedule. I can't have any guests. He said they wanted this, but I doubt it after he brought up how brother-in-law keeps inviting them. I told him to call and tell them we can't have them at our house, and he refused. He said this will make him look bad and will upset them. He told me to calm down and think about it, but it's more people than I can handle. It's crazy. He said if brother-in-law has no issue inviting his family to a small house, why can't we? I left the room and couldn't help but feel a lot of anger. I called my mom, and she said it was better than having to go to them. But my house will be crowded, and I will be busy that I won't even be able to work shifts and earn money. Did I overreact here? Now for the top comments. Not day haul. Don't change your schedule. Work the shifts you need to work. Your husband invited them. He can cook and clean and entertain them. Let him know that this is a circus and his monkeys, and you are not going to kill yourself doing all the work for this. Work the shifts you need to work and take whatever personal me time you need in your bedroom. But your hubby is going to need to do the lion's share of hosting duties. And don't for a second be suckered into any woman's duty BS, where everything is your job. Not day haul. You are a healthcare worker. There is a pandemic. He invited a crap ton of people to your house without letting you know. Tell everyone that because of COVID, you can't take the risk of being in such a large gathering. Go spend a holiday with your parents, or otherwise quarantine yourself for the duration. Let him be the one to cook, clean, etc. And they have a child. Is the husband trying to kill their son by having multiple households of people coming over? He is a pretty crap partner, but an even worse father. I hope Opie outs her husband and nips this dangerous plan in the bud. Not a day haul. If he refuses to call his family back, you should celebrate Christmas with your family and leave the cooking/cleaning/groceries for your in-laws up to your husband. Am I the a-hole because I didn't invite my father to my wedding because years ago he told me I was no longer a part of his family? I, 28 female, will be getting married next month and did not invite my father to the wedding. But now he's trying to get in touch. I feel like I need to explain the background. It all started when I was 6 years old, when my parents divorced after my dad cheated on my mom with my stepmother. After that, I mostly stayed with my mom, but during holidays and vacations, I would stay with my dad. When I was 8, my half-brother Jake, now 20 male, was born. Whenever I was with my dad, I was forced to take care of him. When I started high school, I had to move in with my dad because my mom had to move abroad for work. This was one of the hardest periods of my life. My stepmother wasn't a bad person. She tried to include me in things, but she was very submissive to my father. As for my dad, he always treated me like an outsider, someone who didn't really belong. I was constantly responsible for taking care of Jake, and whenever I took my stepmother and Jake out, I was never invited. One of the most painful experiences happened when I was 14. My dad announced that the whole family was going to Disney for a vacation, but the day before the trip, he told me he wanted it to be a family moment, their first big trip with Jake, so I was left home alone. This was a pattern. Whether it was trips to the beach, the zoo, or other outings, they always went without me. My dad didn't like me going out with friends or inviting them over, saying teenagers together only cause trouble. He was controlling, calling the house phone at random times to check if I was home, and even had a trusted neighbor to keep an eye on me to make sure I didn't have visitors. By the time I turned 16, the feeling of being an outsider had only gotten worse. Everything I had experienced during vacations, the exclusion, the abandonment, became part of my daily life. Things came to a head when I turned 18. My dad got a promotion and decided to take a family trip to Europe. Since it was my last year of high school, I thought I'd finally be included. But then he told me he didn't have enough money for a trip for 4, so it would just be for Jake's 10th birthday, and I had to stay home. That's when I snapped. I told him he was being unfair and shouldn't have given me a false hope. I explained how it felt over the years, and he called me ungrateful and spoiled, saying I lived with him rent-free, which was a lie since my mom sent money for my expenses and I did all the housework because both he and my stepmother worked late. The argument escalated and he kicked me out of the house, saying I was no longer a part of the family and not even his daughter. He literally threw me out and tossed my things onto the sidewalk. Thankfully, a friend lived nearby and I stayed at her place that night. The next day, I went back to see if my dad had calmed down, but I found my things still on the sidewalk, with some even in the trash. My stepmother had kindly saved a few items for me and handed them over. After that, my dad never reached out, except to call and yell at me a month later when my mom stopped sending him money for my expenses. A few months later, I got into an engineering program in another state, where I met my now fiancé, Mark, 29 male. He was a senior and we quickly connected, realizing we had a lot in common. We started dating, graduated, and now work in the same field, although at different companies. A few months ago, Mark proposed, and I happily said yes. I have social media but rarely use it. I've had Instagram for about 6 years and haven't even posted 10 pictures. I think a relative must have told my dad about the wedding because about a month after I accepted the proposal, he reached out through Instagram, saying he was excited to help with the wedding. I was surprised, both by the message and that he thought he'd be walking me down the aisle. I responded, telling him that my stepfather would be walking me down the aisle and that the wedding would be small, just for close family. After that, I blocked him. Inspired by stories I've read on Reddit, I expected calls, messages, and letters full of insults like ungrateful or spoiled. But instead, I received a letter delivered by Jake. Yes, we're still in contact. In the letter, my father expressed how sorry he was. I won't quote the exact words, but to summarize, he said that after kicking me out, he lived life as if normal with my stepmother and Jake. But when he saw pictures of my graduation with my mom and stepfather, he began to feel regret. He wanted to talk to me, but was too proud to reach out. Now he realizes that his pride got him nowhere, and he wants to fulfill one of the plans he made when I was born, to pay for my wedding and walk me down the aisle. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I've moved on with my life, and his attempt at redemption after all these years feels a bit too convenient. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to include my dad in my wedding despite his apology? Edit. My stepfather is amazing. He always goes out of his way to include me in everything, and my stepsisters are wonderful too. When he found out that my father didn't take me to Disney, he planned a trip for the next holiday and took me, my mother, and my stepsisters. This is one of 1,000 reasons why I want him to walk me down the aisle. For those asking why my mom and stepfather left me with my dad, my mom works as a programmer and accepted a job abroad to save money for college and a future. My stepfather is a researcher and was doing postdoctoral work at the time. My stepsister was the first person to talk to me after I was kicked out. She visited me 2 days later and even stayed for a few days, though I was crying so much I barely remember. I didn't move in with her because she lives in another state, and I was close to finishing my classes and final exams. My bridesmaid and her parents let me stay with them, helped me gather my things, and set up a guest room for me. Now for the top comments. Notice how he only wants to walk you down the aisle to fuel his own ego and fulfill a dream he came up with when you were born. He's not doing this out of the kindness of his own heart or out of genuine love and affection. Based on the responses, I realized that my father's letter feels more like an attempt at control. If I don't invite him to the wedding, he can play the victim, and I'll be seen as the bitter daughter. He'll come across as the devoted father who always dreamed of walking me down the aisle, while I'll be the daughter who can't forgive. If he wants to pull this story, ask him publicly where all the family photos of you are in Disneyland, Europe, etc. No doubt there's pictures, and he can't BS his way that he never took family photos. Family members will put 2 and 2 together if they're not dumb. That's exactly what he wants. He wants his public image of being a good dad on show even though he's a monster. Your sperm donor kicked you out 10 years ago. You owe him nothing. Weddings aren't a time to resolve an issue. Tell Jake that his father isn't your problem. It's your wedding. Sperm donor doesn't get an invite. I hope you have a beautiful wedding and an amazing married life. I loved the terms DNA donor and sperm donor. I really think I'm going to start calling him that. Mark is even joking that my DNA is 90% from my mom, so he can't be called a DNA donor. But yes, I'm looking for the best way to respond to Jake so he starts referring to my dad as the sperm donor. My personality tells me to respond politely, but Mark thinks I should be short and blunt. And thank you. I will plan to make the day as special as possible. It'll be a day just for me and Mark. Next story. I told my daughters that I was moving on with the separation anyway. I found out that my husband cheated on me when I was pregnant, both times. I only found out 3 months ago, and until then, we were a very happy family. My husband is a great dad. Our daughters, aged 14 and 16, know the reason we are getting a divorce, and that he had 2 affairs with 2 women, but they don't know all the details. They are opposed to the idea of divorce and have threatened to never see me again if I go through with it, because the affairs happened so long ago. I understand that they don't want change and fear their lives being disrupted. I know all of that, but I just can't be with him anymore. I can't even look at him. Nothing is working. Therapy is not helping and they are adamant about never seeing me again. I haven't seen them in 2 months. We currently rent a small studio apartment, and we alternate living at the house with the girls. One of us lives in the house, while the other stays in the studio. The girls refuse to stay with me at the house during my weeks, but they stay in the studio with my husband. The therapist advised not to change the arrangement, even though I thought I should stay in the studio permanently to give them more space in the house. We bought our house in 2003, and its value has quadrupled. Because of this, we'll be able to afford 2 decent homes, even if they won't be as big and beautiful as this one. It's not like the girls will be living in bad conditions. Before all of this, they were close to both of us and loved us equally. Now, they only love him. Last week, they made it clear that if I file for divorce, they will never see me again. I told them I'm never going back to him, and they said I've made my choice, and they will never see me again. Not the a-hole. Teenagers are stubborn and they think they can force your hand. If you give in to this, you would be setting an example that it's okay to submit to abusive or unfaithful relationships if someone applies pressure. Not something girls should be learning as the norm. Tell them that in their lives, if they ever need to walk out to protect themselves, you will support them, and it's a shame they don't feel the same, but it won't change your intention to do the right thing. I'm worried about what he's saying to them when OP isn't around. When they get older, they'll get wiser and return to mom. Truth always comes out. I 100% agree. I used to think my mom was the best and didn't like my dad. But when we went to get our passports, my dad showed us a message where my mom told him that we had said we felt like he didn't love us anymore. Honestly, that was an eye-opener for me. We were just waiting in line. It wasn't even like we were inside complaining or anything. Later on, I read a divorce settlement. My dad had given my mom about 1.5 million South African rand for properties and other things. He also had to pay for the damage to her car. She had an accident with it. I think she drove it into a tree, while still paying the 1.5 million. On top of that, he has to pay 30K in child support. While I understand it, my mom has barely used any of that money on us. Maybe 2,000 ZAR for spending money, and we're 4 kids, and that's it. We hardly get new clothes. My younger sisters get more than me and my older brother. My dad even pays for new beddings 12 times a year, but we only get new beddings maybe once a year or once every 2 years. My parents divorced and my mom also cheated. Multiple times, actually. I remember sitting at the door waiting for her to come back. I was about 10. From 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. with baths and dinner in between. It took me 7 years to really come to my senses. I wish I could get that time back with my dad. Your daughters will realize what they threw away when all you wanted to do was love them and be there for them. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister I won't raise her child after she abandoned him? I, 21 female, am in college, work part-time, and barely keeping my life together as it is. My sister, 27 female, who has always been more free-spirited than responsible, recently left her 4-year-old son with our parents and disappeared. She quit her job, packed a bag, and went on a soul-searching trip, leaving no real explanation beyond a vague text saying she needed to find herself. Now, our parents are getting older and taking care of a toddler full-time is wearing them down. They've been hinting that I should step up and help more. This has slowly turned into outright suggestions that I should take him in full-time, essentially becoming his guardian. I love my nephew, but I am not in a position to be anyone's mother right now. I have my studies, a tight budget, and no space for a child in my life. I told my parents and sister that while I can babysit here and there, I won't take full responsibility for him. I reminded them that's her child, not mine. When my sister called, I finally confronted her. I told her she needed to figure out her situation and come back for her son. She got angry, accused me of abandoning the family and said I should step up, since I'm the only one who has her life together. My parents are also upset with me. They think I'm being selfish and that I need to grow up and take on more responsibility for the sake of the family. I feel guilty, but at the same time, it's not like I chose to have a child. Am I the a-hole for standing my ground and refusing to become a full-time parent to my nephew? Should I just sacrifice my current life to help my family? Now for the comment. She got angry, accused me of abandoning family. Oh, that's rich. You're the one who's abandoning family? Tell her to look in the mirror. Not the a-hole. I feel so bad for the children in these situations. Please tell her to get her tubes tied so that she doesn't have any more free spirit pregnancies. That's what I choked on too. Girl, I just needed to read the first paragraph. Absolutely not. Not the a-hole. Taking a responsibility your sister doesn't know how to handle will just push you back. Don't even think on doing that. Keep studying, keep working, and keep doing the best you can. I know the kid might struggle, but if you take care of him, it'll be just two people struggling and nobody's gonna be fine. Do the best for yourself. Ignore the rest. Sounds like she picked a winner for a baby daddy if she couldn't dump the kid on his family. Who are we kidding? Her parents are easier and they understand her need to be a free spirit and to find herself. His parents might have just told her to grow the heck up after all. I have a feeling that the sister may not even know who the father is honestly. Being a free spirit, she probably didn't have any exclusive relationships. I could be wrong, but that's the vibe I get from this. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister that her child isn't special and we don't have to plan every family gathering around him? I'm 27 and my sister is a few years older with a 2-year-old son. Ever since she had her child, everything in our family seems to revolve around him. I get that she's excited as a new mom and that her life has changed, but it's really starting to get on my nerves. Every single family gathering is planned solely around her child. If we're organizing a holiday, it has to fit his nap schedule. If we choose a location, it has to be kid-friendly. The food, it always has to include something safe for him, even if the rest of us would prefer something else. I can't even have normal conversations with my family anymore because they always end up turning into discussions about her kid, what he did, how he acted, how the doctor's appointment went, or what new word he learned. Every story my sister tells seems to conclude with the idea that her son is the most amazing, extraordinary child ever. I'm happy for her, but it feels like everyone else in the family has become background noise in her child-centered show. A few days ago, I suggested we all go out for dinner one evening at a restaurant so we could finally have some adult time. Just relax and talk, without constantly worrying about her son's needs. My sister immediately shut it down, saying it didn't fit with her son's schedule because his bedtime routine includes a bath, dinner, and then sleep. This wasn't the first time plans got rejected for that reason, but this time I decided to speak up. I told her that her child isn't the center of the universe, and that we don't need to plan every single family gathering around his schedule. I suggested that maybe she could come to just one event on her own and leave the child with her husband or a babysitter so we could enjoy some time without any limitations. She flipped out. She said I was heartless, that I don't understand how hard it is to be a mother, and that I'm an ungrateful sibling who doesn't appreciate her sacrifices. She claimed I treat her child like a burden when, for her, he's the most important person in her life. Since then, we haven't spoken, and now my parents are saying I went too far and that I should apologize because being a parent is a huge responsibility, and my sister has every right to expect support. On one hand, I understand that her child is her priority, but on the other hand, I feel like this has gone too far, and that as a family, we shouldn't constantly have to give up our plans and enjoyment just because her kid has a schedule. Am I really the a-hole for wanting to occasionally have a normal family gathering without always catering to the needs of a toddler? Am I the a-hole? What you should have done is say, "Oh, so sorry you can't make it. We will miss you." And everyone else carried on with the plans. I agree every single plan should not be dependent on a baby's schedule. Not every single time. Great idea. Thanks a lot. Info: which members of your family are advocating for child-free events other than you? As someone who regularly wants child-free time, this is the real issue. Go out with your friends if you want to avoid your nephew. He is part of your family now, and so will be at family gatherings. Am I the a-hole for not paying to change my father's gravely insulting gravestone? My father and mother had a very bitter marriage towards the end of his life. He had a long-running affair with another married co-worker and got her pregnant before he passed. He was planning to leave mom, skip the country, and move to Canada to start a new life with her. They had a house picked out and all. He had moved out and was living with his co-worker when he suddenly died of a heart attack while being intimate. Divorce papers were never filed. No legal separation. They were in the process of moving all things legal, but in paper, they were still happily married. Now, me and my siblings are already out of home. Our youngest sibling is 19 and is in college. I work for a tech company and I'm currently back in my hometown helping my mom manage this estate. While my mom was hurt and petty, it marked his gravestone as, in loving memory of John Doe, son, husband, father, and adulterer. My dad's family and his pregnant partner are mad and want me to fix it. I personally think it's fine, as that's who he was. He was all of those things, and since it's my mom's plot, I can't do anything. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. I would die, no pun intended, if I was walking through a cemetery and saw that. Your mom is an icon. Not the a-hole. I hope she burns his old shirts or something. Also, while going through estate papers and talking to lawyers, ask about what rights the side piece will have in claiming money for her kid, since it was your dad's kid too. Just so you're all prepared. Side piece is currently 9 months pregnant, about to pop any day. My mom is lawyered up, and since my dad died intestate, according to our state laws, everything goes to mom. Mom won't leave anything for side piece. She's going to leave it for us once she passes. Not the a-hole. And since it's my mom's plot, I can't do anything. So not even your drama. My dad's family and his pregnant partner are mad and want me to fix it. Stay out of it. Tell them to talk to your mom. They want me to convince my mom to fix it. My dad's family have tried talking to her, but she has stopped taking their calls. There is nothing I can do. My mother owns the headstone. She's given you the answer. And don't answer anymore. Everyone sucks here. Your dad is the a-hole for cheating, and your mom is the a-hole for writing something so horrible on his gravestone. The kid will never know their father will forever see this. And not only that, Opie seems really sour, which of course it can be. Rightly so. Your father left your mom for another woman. But in a sick way, you're also punishing that child. By not only helping to not get adulterer removed, despite how funny to us, but won't be to them. It's just hurtful. But also by not sharing the part of inheritance in the future that should have been your half-siblings too. You've stripped the child of any connection and financial support they would have gotten from your collective father. It's like you want to ignore the sibling like it doesn't exist. They do. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for saying that my boyfriend had a lifetime commitment to his ex since they are co-parents? My boyfriend used to be married to Jennifer, and they have twins. I had never dated a father before, so I really didn't know what to expect. Anyway, my boyfriend and Jennifer are co-parents and split the parenting duties pretty equally. They see each other a lot and communicate a lot about their sons. I realized after we were together for a year that things really weren't working for me. I knew my boyfriend had a commitment from before me to being a father, and that would be a lifelong commitment. I felt okay with that, and felt like that made him a good dad and a good man. I didn't realize that also meant he'd have, what I see to be, a lifelong commitment to Jennifer. To co-parent well, they have to communicate often, see each other often, work through disagreements or stressors respectfully, share holidays, stay in touch with each other's families, etc. I felt like those were things I respected him for doing, but I also didn't feel like were what I wanted in a partner. I want a partner who commits to me alone and no other woman, and I want to feel like life decisions are made between me and my partner primarily, not between my partner and his co-parents primarily. I felt like the main relationship in the dynamic was my partner and Jennifer. So I talked to him after about a year, saying that I respected his commitment to his family a lot, but I didn't feel like the relationship was working for me, because I couldn't make a life with someone who already had a lifetime commitment with another woman. My boyfriend was really upset with me for saying he had a lifetime commitment to Jennifer, saying that they were divorced. I said maybe not a marriage commitment, but they definitely have a lifetime commitment to raising their children together. They will always be the parents of two lovely boys who will be in their lives hopefully for their whole lives. And with that family, they would always have a commitment to their family and to each other. And that I was happy they could do that for their children's sake, and I respected. But it wasn't for me. My boyfriend was really angry, saying he never wanted to commit to Jennifer. She pressured him into marriage since she got pregnant young. And she isn't his girlfriend or anything but the parent of his children to him. It is offensive to him to say he has a lifetime commitment to her. This is where I probably messed up, but I said, but you do. Whether you like it or not, you have a family together. He said that he needed some time alone and left for a few days. I feel conflicted. I honestly think that he does have a commitment to Jennifer, and I understand and respect that. But I also know he's upset to hear that, and to hear that it's the reason I don't see a relationship working long term. Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend he has a commitment to the mother of his children? No a-holes here, but please don't date any more single parents. It's 100% okay to feel this way, but don't waste your time or anyone else's now that you know this is a personal boundary for you. I actually applaud you for not asking him to make a decision between you, and knowing that his children will always come first. Yeah, I didn't really know what to expect getting to this relationship. I felt like I might be getting in out of my depth, since it started as a casual fling, and we only got together when we started having feelings for each other. I think in my future relationships, I want to be more intentional and take more time to think about the practicalities of how combining lives with someone would go. It's kinda sad to know people can like each other a lot, but still not be compatible because of life circumstances. It is sad, but it's better to realize this now. He needs someone in his life who is willing to have the ex-wife and kids, and ex-wife's future partner, as part of their life. It is great that you realize you are not that person. It saves so much heartache down the line. He is a package deal. Not today, home. But you do, whether you like it or not. Exactly. It's naive or ignorant to think otherwise. Dating parents is always going to be a tricky thing. You have the kids to cope with, the ex, and in a lot of cases, plus their family. It never appealed to me, as I just don't think taking on that burden is worth it. My husband has an ex and 2 boys who he's very involved with. He talks to one of them at least once a day. Not an issue for me. I knew about it beforehand, and I was prepared for it. But Opie's completely correct. This is a lifetime commitment. Even after the boys are grown, they will probably still be communicating with his ex. If he dates someone who has kids and wants to be part of their lives, that is, a decent parent, the ex is going to be part of their life too. And by extension, yours. If you don't want to deal with it, don't. There's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting your significant other's commitment to be to you alone. If you've figured this out, great. You know now that you don't want to date a single parent from now on. Again, nothing wrong with that. So yeah, not a a-hole at all. No a-holes here. You're right. He has a commitment to his kids, and it's honestly good to see that he gets along with his ex to co-parent effectively. You've figured out that this relationship isn't for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's upset because you are ending the relationship, so his reaction is not unexpected. Unless he went overboard in being angry, which would tip this to not a-hole for you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for acting unhappy at me and my wife's gender reveal? My wife is 7 months pregnant. It came as a complete surprise, as my wife had been taking birth control regularly. We had originally planned to not have any kids, but my wife changed her mind after her first ultrasound. I respected her decision, even if I wasn't the happiest about it. I told her that regardless, I wasn't going to force her to make a decision. We had a gender party late because of issues with the pandemic, but we finally got around to it. I already was not happy, given the circumstances that I did not want to have any children. I still participated to show support to my wife though. Once the gender reveal happened, everyone including my wife was ecstatic. She went to go hug me and I hugged her back, just not with the same energy. She looked at me with a concerned face, but went off to hug some of her friends and family. Once it was over and we got everything put up, she blew up at me. Said I embarrassed her in front of her family. The least I could have done was pretended I cared. I told her I didn't really see a point in throwing a party just because of the gender, but she wanted to do it, so I agreed. She said she understood that I didn't really want to have a baby, but that since they were almost here that I should probably lose the attitude already. I responded saying that since she knew I didn't want the baby, she shouldn't be surprised I wasn't enjoying the baby shower. She supposedly thought that the baby shower would change my mind, but was upset it hadn't. I told her that I wasn't going to apologize for simply not showing any emotion, and that she needed to give me time to adjust, especially with a kid on the way. Am I the a-hole? Edit. We used protection and I was denied a vasectomy by my doctor. I don't think this is really a question about who's the a-hole. I think your world is changing dramatically in a way which you weren't prepared for, and that therapy is almost definitely required. It's not wrong to be freaked out, but you've decided to go ahead with this and now you need to find a way to come to terms with it. Ideally before the kid arrives, so you can parent your child in the fullest and best way possible. I said her decision because ultimately it was. She's the one carrying the baby, not me. I couldn't force her to terminate even if I wanted to. And yeah, it could be a fear of unknown. I'm not sure. I'm still with her because I do believe I can have a change of heart once I hold our kid. I just have a lot going through my head at this point. Please get therapy immediately. You need to process this, preferably before the baby is born. Your wife must already feel really alone in her pregnancy, and when she gives birth, she is really vulnerable and shouldn't have to worry about you. It sucks that this happened to you, but it's not fair on your wife and child if you resent the child. Therapy can help with that, or at least make clear how you wish to proceed. You're not an a-hole for being nonplussed at a gender reveal. Gender reveals are stupid. But man, you need to check your attitude. If you are not willing or able to be all in with this kid, remove yourself from the situation and commit to paying child support. I get that you didn't want a kid, but it is happening. You did it. And the kid does not deserve a father who isn't going to give their all. A father whose attitude towards them is, I didn't want you. Your wife is right. You don't need to lose the attitude already. If you think you can lift yourself, if you think there's a chance that dad mode will kick in when the baby is born, then great. But start doing it now. For your sake and for your wife's. Not going to give a ruling because I don't think you're an a-hole. You just need a whack around the head. You're the a-hole. Not for not spontaneously being excited for a child when you don't/didn't want a child. But you're the a-hole for making it so obvious, especially at a party. Sorry to say. But unless you think you could pull it together and generate some excitement, I think you should look into divorce. Because there is going to be a child. And in my opinion, as a child of divorce, I would say having a single parent is better than having one of two parents obviously not give a crap about you. I agree with this. If you're going to be simmering with resentment for much of the child's life, that's awful for all involved. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for sending my son to his dad after he broke his sister's phone just because she called my husband dad? When my husband first met my kids 4 years ago, Sarah 14, Jonathan 17, things were tense. Although my husband loved them instantly, Jonathan decided to make it hard and influenced Sarah to do the same. He treated my husband poorly, called him the guy mom married, broke/threw his stuff, and shut him out when he tried to get close. We got family therapy, but Jonathan refused and tried to stop Sarah from going. Sarah was hesitant, saying she promised Jonathan not to do what her stepdad wants, and was afraid he'd get angry. She then attended therapy, and things started working out between her and my husband. They got close, which upset Jonathan, who tried giving Sarah, didn't know then, punishments for betraying his orders. We tried getting Jonathan in therapy again, but my ex defended his decision and demanded we leave it alone. Things have calmed down. Then yesterday morning at 8, Sarah rushed into the kitchen where I was washing glasses while Jonathan and my husband was sitting having breakfast. She was looking for her phone charger but didn't find it in her room. She quickly turned her face towards my husband and said, "Dad, Jonathan, have you guys seen my phone charger?" Me, my husband, and Jonathan paused. This was her first time ever calling him Dad, and it came unexpectedly and naturally. My husband tried to answer but was too overwhelmed to speak. His eyes were teary. He couldn't hide it even when he tried. Sarah didn't even notice. She just rushed out to keep looking. Jonathan followed her. My husband bit his lips and kept looking at me, then started crying. I was genuinely smiling, which awful since he was crying a mess, but I was just so happy for him. Then I heard noise coming from upstairs. It was Jonathan yelling at Sarah for calling her stepdad Dad. He punished her by throwing her phone and breaking it. She cried, telling him to leave her alone, but he kept yelling, saying she betrayed their real dad and called this guy Dad. I got involved and asked him why he broke Sarah's phone. He called her a traitor, but I replied my husband did nothing to treat him this way, and his behavior was out of line. I said he either respected this household, his stepdad, his sister and me, or go stay with his dad till he agrees to get therapy and change his behavior. I contacted my ex saying Jonathan will go stay with him for now. And therapy is in order since I can't let him intimidate Sarah, especially after Sarah told me she's afraid of him. My ex fought me saying I chose a guy over my own son. Typical. He got his family involved, and they all called me cruel for kicking Jonathan out of his own home, even after I explained how he's been treating his sister. I gave him options: get therapy or stay with his dad. No one seems to agree with me, but I think that no one is seeing, or maybe they're turning a blind eye, how Jonathan has been mistreating his sister. She needs to feel safe in her own home and be able to express herself without being punished/intimidated by her older brother. Not a hole. Your son is mistreating your daughter. You're not picking your husband over your son. You are protecting your daughter from your son. And maybe it's for the best that he stays with his dad if he finds your husband so offensive to the point where he acts out like this. Your ex is also partially to blame for enjoying the treatment your son dishes out to members of the household, due to his dislike of you remarrying. I understand he's hurt, but that doesn't give him a right to destroy or break property that doesn't belong solely to him. Therapy or move to dad sounds pretty darn reasonable in my opinion. I bet this has been festering a long time, and X and his family have been egging the son on, which will likely only continue if he goes to live with him. It's such a shame the ex thinks his ego is more important than his son, who has clearly been struggling and could use support from family instead of poison. I hope he should expect son to pull away if he goes to live with the ex, because this trash talking won't stop. But her son is almost an adult, so there's always hope that as he matures, he will gain some empathy and see the situation with some experience and come around. I hope he and husband should continue being supportive and always let son know that the door is open, so long as that sort of treatment of his sister never happens again. He doesn't have to ever like his stepdad, but he does have to respect him, mom's relationship with him, and sister's very valid feelings for him. Not today, home. The issue I see isn't between your son and your husband, but between your son and your daughter who thinks he has authority to punish. But I'm not a therapist who would have the training to see what the issue really is. I think everyone would be doing your son a disservice if they framed this as bio-dad versus the man that turned his mama on. Your son has issues that need to be addressed wherever he lives.
Update: am I wrong for not accepting my sister's relationship with my ex, despite her having cancer as a teenager? Original post: my 25 female father married my stepsister's 23 female mother when I was 4 and she was 3. We've lived together most of our lives and are a family. She and I were extremely close. She developed cancer when she was 14 and was sick for about 2 years. She's since made a full recovery. During that time, my parents became understandably overprotective. They also asked a lot of me. I quit my extracurriculars so I could get a job, and the money went towards her medical bills, also so I could drive her to appointments. I didn't go to dances, and any fun activities I did needed to include her. I did almost all of this willingly, the exception being having to quit my high school volleyball team. I did throw a bit of a tantrum about that, but was swiftly punished. And I think having one emotional breakdown was pretty chill given the circumstances. Anyhow, I go to college and meet my ex, we'll call him Ben, when I was a junior. We fall in love blah blah blah. He and I move in together when we graduate, so we've been living together for about 3 years. We were serious, until July when I walked into my bedroom and saw him banging my sister. I broke it off, tears were shed, he moved out, etc. My sister apologized at first, but then backed off. I thought she was giving me space, but last week she called and asked if we could meet up. She told me that she and Ben were in love and were just telling me as a courtesy before they started posting photos online. Distraught, I left her in the restaurant by herself and did not pay my portion of the bill. She later Venmo'd me asking for the money. She told my parents, who then called me to their house, telling me how disappointed in me they are for not supporting my sister's relationship with Ben. They brought up the fact that because she had cancer as a teenager, she never learned proper social etiquette and has a hard time meeting people. I don't buy this, in part because I've seen her socialize just fine, and since we spent a good chunk of the time she was sick together, that would also mean that I should have bad social skills as well by that logic. They then told me that if I don't accept my sister and Ben's relationship, they may have to go no contact with me. I reminded them that I'm also their daughter, and they should understand my point of view, but they are adamant that this is about me being jealous of her. For the record, I'm not jealous of her. I'm not upset that Ben picked her over me. I'm sad about the end of the relationship and do feel betrayed, but Lord knows that I don't want to be with a cheater. What I'm upset about is the fact that my sister chose Ben over me, that she slept with Ben knowing he and I were in a long-term committed relationship, and continues to be with him knowing how much it hurts me. Now no one in my immediate family is talking to me, and I'm getting messages from aunts and uncles and cousins telling me that I'm the idiot and a selfish witch. Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the idiot. Your parents are enablers. Cancer as a teen did not shrink wrap her and isolate her from the entirety of human mores and values forever and ever. Amen. From what you describe, it sounds disturbingly like you have been deemed the cannon fodder of the family. Take some time for yourself and put them on the back burner. Is it just cancer, or any potentially life-threatening disease that gives an exemption? I really need to know because I might have behaved unnecessarily for many years. Not the idiot. I could have died when I was 8 and spent a week in a hospital on IV antibiotics. I'm not dead because my mom mentioned that I had chills with my fever, which are apparently normal for adults but only occur with children if they are in pretty bad shape. I had a fever of over 104 by the time they got me to the hospital. While I certainly wouldn't compare that to having cancer, I was sick for a whole week. I think I was out longer when I had chickenpox. But yeah, this is baffling. Cancer survivor doesn't equal cannot be held accountable for anything hurtful they do for the rest of their lives, especially when it was almost a third of her life ago, and she's an adult now. I'm guessing this sub is skewed, but a whole lot of people seem to not know that sleeping with partners of siblings and friends is a no-no. Unless you clear it with them first, if, they've been broken up for several years and it was mostly amicable. Not wrong. I had cancer as a teenager. I've managed to not sleep with either of my siblings' partners, weirdly enough. Maybe you were on a different treatment plan. God, you're right, it'll be the socialized healthcare stopping me from living this timeline. I really am very sorry that your entire family are terrible. You are handling this with the grace that few could manage. Oh, don't you worry. I'm totally falling apart right now. I just have a dark sense of humor and no choice but to keep going with my life. Edit. I've been given a lot of food for thought. To be honest, while I've had moments where I've been resentful or upset about my teenage years, I've always thought that I did the right thing for my sister and for my family. And that time wasn't all miserable. I was very close to my sister and we made things as fun as we could. But I didn't think of it as an abdication of my parents' responsibilities or that they were doing wrong by me, which many of you pointed out. I definitely have a lot to think about. Thank you again for making me feel less crazy about all of this. Mini update. Sometimes you can only laugh. Just got off of the phone with my cousin who saw this post and said he could explain a few things. I asked him why he was on Reddit instead of school. He asked me why I was on Reddit instead of work, and I said touche. He told me that after my conversation with my mom, she went to his house and talked to my aunt. And here's the deal. Turns out my sister is not only in a relationship with Ben, but 4 months pregnant, which means she and Ben were banging for longer than I had even guessed. Apparently, my parents are so adamant that I forgive her because I'm already ruining their experience of their first grandchild. That's right, I'm less important than my stepmom posting ultrasounds to Facebook. This is where we're at. Anyhow, I called out of work sick the rest of the day, and I'm going to drink a lot of alcohol, and then start thinking about what the heck I'm going to do. Now for the first update. I was asked for an update and thus, here I am. 2 things to clarify before I update. 1. I didn't have a horrible childhood. The favoritism started when my sister was diagnosed. I moved out soon after and have been pretty independent since then. Not saying that how my parents treated me during those years were a-okay, but I wasn't Cinderella. 2. I did not drink myself into oblivion. I had 2 white wine spritzers, but I appreciate the concern from folks. Anyhow, the update. I got in touch with my sister and asked her to meet up again at a park, no bill involved. I asked her if she was pregnant, and she told me the truth. She said she wanted us to still be in each other's lives, and that she wanted me to be in her babies. A Redditor mentioned that she may ask me to be the godmother, and that person was correct. But as many of you pointed out, if I didn't cut her off, I'd just become her bank and daycare employee. So I told her I could no longer be in her life, and I left her crying on a park bench and felt like the crappiest person in the world. I emailed my parents and told them how betrayed I felt and that I'd be cutting off contact with them. To my stepmom's credit, she apologized. She explained that she never thought my sister would live to have kids and that she let her emotion over that get the better of her. Understandable. My dad said nothing, which is honestly what sucked the worst about all of this. Ben tried messaging me from a burner account for the first time since the breakup, but I blocked him without reading it. I didn't go nuclear and post the story to Facebook as some suggested, but I sent an email to the extended family members who I care about. I explained the situation and how I'd be distancing myself from my family. Some have made it an us versus them situation, and as much as I appreciate the support, feeling like I'm in some valiant battle just makes me more tired. So I haven't been talking to much of anyone in my family. I feel lonely and crappy, but I think I made the right decision. Anyhow, not the most exciting update in the world, but hopefully everyone knows that I'm not dead. I do really appreciate the support I've gotten. It made me smile during a really horrible time. And hey, if anyone in the greater Boston area wants an extra guest at Thanksgiving, let me know. And I left her crying on a park bench and felt like the crappiest person in the world. You aren't. You made the right decision. Sometimes people aren't good to be in your life, and you have to do things even if they are hard. Keep trying to live your best life. Yeah, the sister really did this to herself. It's mind-boggling to think that you can do something so cruel to someone and expect them to just brush it off with no consequence. I'm glad OP is creating some distance here. There's no way the family wouldn't continue taking advantage of her. I feel so sorry for OP, considering her dad has shown his true favoritism and now basically knows that she has lost her parents' support. I hope she gets through this and finds people that truly support her. They might come around once the consequences of their actions sets in now. Lots of people will take advantage of you as long as they think they can get away with it. I'd still recommend OP taking some time away for now, even if he apologizes though. I'm sorry things turned out this way and that you aren't a priority to your parents. But seriously, does she not realize that? A, you and Ben were still sleeping together during those months, and he could have just been stringing her along. B, has she never been in a relationship? How would she feel if you had done that to her? C, she can always wonder now if Ben is cheating on her with someone else, but it would be karma. Ultimately, I hope your parents realize that you are just as important as she is, and their behavior is pretty horrible. Good luck. A, according to her, neither wanted to hurt me by telling me, which, though. B, she's had a few boyfriends, but they've only lasted a month or two. C, for her sake, I hope he doesn't. D, my stepmom told me that they'll welcome me back with open arms when I choose to come back. I'm just not sure that I'll come back. They won't be giving up on my sister. That's the fun part of giving up on them. You don't have to care anymore. You don't have to feel hurt or play games. You get to just be. That's what you will start to feel when this all normalizes. Just give it time. Find a new hobby or dust an old one off. Make something of your complete own that none of them were invited or included in. That will be your place of solitude, the rock that you set up shop on. Second update. Hi, some people were interested in an update, so. 1. I am spending Thanksgiving with a friend and her family, so I won't be alone. Thanks to everyone who offered to host me, it was so sweet. 2. I'm still not in touch with my family, but I know that Ben and my sister are having problems. I know this because he showed up at my place and cried for 3 hours. 3. I'm going to go to New Mexico in April. Planning is underway. Happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate. Now for the third update. I think my old ex sabotaged my relationship with my new ex 27 male. To make a long story short, my 26 female breakup last summer with ex number 1 26 male was volcanic. He's now expecting a baby with my stepsister within the next 6 weeks or so. Since I found out about the pregnancy, he's tried to get in touch with me 6 times through email, text, burner accounts, has tried to get mutual friends to talk to me for him, and showed up to my place once. The latter was the only time I humored him. He told me he was sorry, that he loves me, he doesn't want to be with my stepsister, and wants to get back together with me. I told him tough luck, he made his bed and now he's got to lay in it. With her. I haven't dated much since July because of my life's implosion. But in November a friend from college messaged me out of the blue. We hadn't talked in a long time. He 27 male, referred to as ex number 2 for the rest of the post, and ex number 1 were good friends, but had a falling out over something fantasy football related the year after we graduated, and I stopped talking to him out of solidarity, or whatever. Anyhow, we go on a date. We click. We go on a few more dates. We become exclusive in early December. I was feeling really hopeful about this until this morning. I was supposed to meet ex number 2 at a New Year's party last night. He got there before I left the house and texted me saying that ex number 1 was at the party and asked whether I still wanted to come. I declined and went to another friend's house and have a pretty good time. I tried calling ex number 2 at midnight, but he didn't pick up. I didn't think much about it. Anyhow, I go to bed late, and when I wake up this morning, I have a message from ex number 2 saying we're done. I couldn't even respond because he'd blocked me everywhere. I talked to a friend who was at the party the exes were at last night, and he said the two of them had spent a good chunk of time chatting with each other, but he didn't know what they were talking about. I'm not close with anyone else who was at the party, so I don't really have anyone else to ask. Like, okay, it was a 2-month-old relationship. I'm sad, but I'm not bereft. But the paranoid part of my mind is really concerned that ex number 1 said something that resulted in ex number 2 becoming ex number 2. Ex number 2 has made it abundantly apparent that he doesn't want to talk to me again, and I don't want to push that boundary. But I'm so confused. I could contact ex number 1, but I get the feeling that will open a floodgate of drama. I could also try talking to other mutual friends to see if they've heard anything, but I also don't really want to spread this as a rumor if it wasn't true. I don't know. I'm at a loss. Any advice here? I'm spiraling thinking that my ex is going to try to ruin every relationship I have for the rest of my life. Deep breaths. Do nothing. You are right, any contact with ex number 1 will bring drama, so sit tight. If your ex number 1 interfered, the very worst thing you can do is overreact right now. Ex number 1 has been desperately trying to get your attention. Don't give in. Don't let ex number 1 know he's got you right where he wants you. Inevitably, you'll learn more about what happened in time. Let it be. As awful as this is, remember that a man who will believe your ex after a few minutes of conversation over spending 2 months with you, without even speaking to you, is not a man to waste many tears over. If what you think happened is what happened, then your ex number 2 is crappy judgment in people and not much spine. Thank you, I needed to hear this. It sucks to do nothing, but it's probably the right course of action. Unfortunately, I'm thinking that ex number 2 isn't the only person with crappy judgment in people, and that I need to figure some things out myself. There are 4 possibilities here. 1. Your exes rekindled their friendship at the party, and out of solidarity, ex number 2 agreed to dump and ghost you. He chose his boy over you. It sucks, but it is what it is in this case. They were friends first. 2. Ex number 1 said something disgusting and untrue to ex number 2, and instead of confronting you about it first, he went the dump, ghost route, in which case you've dodged a bullet. Who would want to be with someone who blindly takes an outsider's word about you? 3. Ex number 2 had some kind of substance or alcohol-induced mental breakdown, and in an out-of-body stupor, did what he did. I think it's pretty self-explanatory why no one would want to be with someone like this. 4. Ex number 1 told ex number 2 about the drama he's caused with you. Maybe cried to him about his love for you. Could have said some deranged stuff. Ex number 2 might have decided the drama and craziness is too much for him and went scorched earth. Sucks, but it has only been 2 months, and if he was really scared off, understandable, because he needs to do what's best for his mental well-being and maybe even safety. In any of these cases, you should leave it. We can speculate all day about what happened, but unless he breaks his silence over it, it's a waste of energy. Better to focus that on self-healing and staying far away from these cruddy people. Or ex number 1 stole ex number 2's phone and typed the message and blocked her. Now ex number 2 thinks she's ghosting him. To be honest, I wish it had been one of these. Turns out, he got wasted, hooked up with someone else, and blocked me so he wouldn't need to have an uncomfortable conversation. He knew that after everything that happened, cheating's a bit of a trigger for me. Ex number 1 is guilty of many things, but innocent here. I was being paranoid. Now for the 4th update. I'm beginning to think that there's something wrong with me. My last 2 partners have cheated on me. The first was a very serious relationship. We lived together, we talked about marriage and buying a house. He even took 2 pictures of us as kids and photoshopped them together to show what our kids might look like one day. The result was terrifying but hilarious, and I had it as the background of my phone for a month. I walked in on him sleeping with my stepsister. Now she's pregnant, due in the near future, and he's with her. I know he's not happy. I know he regrets what he did. I know that he loved me, and none of that stopped him from sleeping with my stepsister in our bed. I've spent so long now being upset at her, and writing him off as just a bad decision that I wasted time on. But now I find myself mourning what we had. My stepsister and I grew up together and have loved each other most of our lives. So it felt like that was the betrayal. But he and I chose each other. Out of all the people on the earth, we looked each other in the eyes, committed to each other, and made the promise to stay faithful. And he lied, and he lied, and he lied, and he lied. And he let me go on loving him while he lied. And then a few months ago, another guy comes into my life, and for the first time in ages I felt hopeful. I thought to myself that maybe I could actually move on and live my life. I wasn't in love with him, but he was the kind of man I thought I could fall in love with. We were exclusive for about a month. Before we made the decision to be exclusive, I told him everything that had happened with my first ex, and told him that I could never be with another cheater. I wake up on New Year's Day to a text saying we're done. When I tried getting in touch, I found out he'd blocked me everywhere. Turns out, he met someone at a New Year's party and hooked up with her. Instead of telling me, he just blocked me everywhere and sent a lackey to message me a few weeks later with the real story and a half-baked apology. I want to be angry, and maybe a part of me is, but as I'm sitting here, I'm just thinking, what if it's me? What if I'm just not lovable? What if it's never going to happen for me? The thing is, I've been a pretty confident person. I went through BS as a kid, but I got through it and grew stronger. I'm pretty good looking, though I've admittedly put on a little weight in the past couple weeks. I've been told that I'm fun, I hold down a good job and make decent money. I also live my life according to my values. I've always put my family and partner first, because that's just how I believed it should be done, and I thought that I would be prioritized in turn. I've lost most of my family, because they'd rather have my stepsister's baby in their life than me. My friends have been fair weather for the most part, and I know that I'm a laughingstock in my friend group, as much as they pretend to pity me to my face. I feel the little spark I've always had fading. I don't chime in on conversations anymore. I've stopped putting on cute clothes when I go out. I don't plan anything, so I don't have anything to be disappointed about. Soon I'll be the same age as my mom was when she died. I never knew her, but I've always loved her, thinking of her watching over me. I don't remember the funeral, but it was one of those funerals where there wasn't a dry eye in the house. She lit up a room, people tell me. She was a good woman. In my worst moments, I wonder what it would be like if I died right now. Would anyone cry? Would anyone care? Would anyone even come? Anyhow, sorry for writing a novella. Just not sure what to do anymore and who to talk to. If you read all this, thank you. It is not you. These people didn't cheat because of you. They didn't cheat because they thought less of you or that you were unlovable. No, they cheated because they are low character, lying, cheating, self-centered snakes. Those adjectives say nothing about you, so stop thinking that way. Victims of infidelity want reasons for why people cheat on them. It turns out to be quite simple. There is something basically wrong with the person who committed the infidelity. It's never you, it's always them. Thank you, I appreciate it. Sorry that you have gone through all of this. You just happened to go out with a couple of a-holes. Who hasn't? Like you said about some of the other things in your life. It made you stronger, and this will also. Don't change or give up on your values. You will find the person for you, and it will be worth it. As for your stepsister, keep in mind she is with a cheater, and one day he will most likely cheat on her, and she will be raising a kid with a cheater for a father. Stay positive that things will work out. You have a lot going for you, and you should always remember that. Fifth update. Hello folks. I thought that things on the internet died after a couple days, so color me surprised when I still get requests for updates on the regular. Long story short, I don't have much to update. I didn't end up going to New Mexico because I conveniently got COVID the week before I was supposed to go. The baby was had, but I have had no contact with the baby or their parents. I've done a pretty good job of insulating myself from news about them and the rest of my family. My life is pretty much the same as it was. So, sorry to the folks who are hoping I have some kind of happy ending to slap onto all of this. Things are improving just because time barrels on, and you can grow numb to most anything given enough time and distance. But I have had no grand revelations, have not met the love of my life, nor had elaborate revenge on those who have wronged me. I am going to Europe for the first time in October though, so that's exciting. I will say this, while I appreciate the solidarity and sometimes colorful language used to describe my sister and Ben in my DMs, I wholeheartedly ask everyone reading this not to waste their energy on hating them. They're now parents to a newborn, and regardless of the things they've done in the past, I hope that they can come together as a happy family and raise their child in a loving, healthy home. Hating them doesn't do anything for anyone, including ourselves, in the long run. Anyhow, that's the non-update update. I promise that if I meet the love of my life at the top of the Eiffel Tower, or more likely stuffing my face with waffles in Bruges, I will post another update. Until then, you can assume that I am living, trying my best, and am very appreciative of all of the people out there in the world who have read this saga and reached out with support, even if I have not had the energy to respond to everyone. Now for the last update as of October 17, 2022. Hi, just wanted to give a more recent, less depressing update. I am currently in my hotel room in Paris, eating a creme brulee in bed, reading a romance novel, and about to go to sleep early. All is well.